Do you make pancakes with a mix, or do you destroy pancakes even with a mix? With just a little science, you can make every pancake light, tender, and delicious. No more Frisbees! Hello, and welcome to this Kitchen Science and Common Sense short class. This short is actually as much lab as it is a science lesson. Baking classes will be available soon in the full series. Today, though, we are going to experiment with the effects of moisture on wheat flour. In a very simple explanation, wheat flour has two structural components. Mostly it is starch, but there is also a significant amount of protein, specifically gluten. For today's lab, we are concerned with the solubility of these two components. Starch is water soluble, whereas protein is only fat soluble. These two chemistry truths affect so many recipes that it is impossible to count them. Hopefully, you will subscribe to this channel and join us again to find out why your gravy has lumps, why your soup is too thin, the coffee cake is flat, your biscuits are like hockey pucks, and as we will see today, the pancakes are like rubber Frisbees. This science short will focus on successful pancakes. We will follow the directions on the package mix as far as the measurements in grilling temperature and time. And we will mostly follow the directions for preparation, but for the most part only. The directions are okay, simply dubious. So let's start. Our focus today is on protein. This is a picture of a simple protein molecule. See all these hydrogen atoms that just want to get married to some oxygen? Well, when the flour is dry, the starch keeps the protein molecules from bonding with other protein molecules. But once you add the liquid to the flour, the water-soluble starch dissolves, letting the protein run amok. Without the dry starch to keep the protein molecules separated, they keep making more and more peptide bonds and get longer and longer, and the protein is very happy to make these big, long, rubbery chains, as you can see here. And that is just wrong if you want successful quick breads. Let's press forward making pancakes. For this lab experiment, we will follow the directions as closely as possible, with one exception. When it says to whisk the mix and water, we will stir some lightly at first and then whisk the rest. Let's go to the lab. Okay, we're here now in the lab and plan to make some pancakes. Now, the recipe on the bag says to heat the grill to 375, and that's done. And next on the list says add 1 cup mix, and we'll add the water. But what we're trying to prove today is that protein and starch will either come together for our benefit or it will be contrary. So on the bag it uses the words whisk, meaning this tool here. Now it says not to overstir it too much, but how much is too much? Well, that's kind of hard to know. So that's what we're trying to determine today. So once we add the water, I have a couple of choices. I can mix it with a spoon and control how long I want to stir it so that we only get to the point where there are some small lumps, maybe the size of peas. Now, is that a problem because there's dry portions in the mix? Well, no, there's two reasons why it's fine. First of all, we're going to be waiting 2 minutes according to the recipe, and the water will continue to work its way into the dry batter, somewhat anyway. But then also, when it gets on the heat, that water will become steam, and then that steam really infuses itself into the dry mix, so there will be no lumps. You'll notice that as soon as it's done. Okay, let's proceed. I'm going to add just the water and stir it only until it gets to the point where there are some lumps. You can see here that there are still some lumps, but let's see what happens to the moisture as it sits. Now, it does say to wait 2 minutes. The alarm has just sounded, and now let's try it. Okay, now we'll go ahead and whisk the rest of this. Okay, it says we're finally to a point where there's no lumps. It does say to whisk well. And there you have it. Let's check it on the inside and see what we have. Is it tender inside? Is it soft? Is it pliable? All these things are characteristics that we need to consider. Now these are the first ones. Do you see they're plump and thick? They're soft and tender, and they tear rather easily. They do tear easy. Now let's try the ones where we stirred them a lot. That's just rubbery. You can see how rubbery they are. They're just not the same pancake at all. They're not the same. Now, they're still pancakes, sure, and I imagine that your family would still love them, mostly because you didn't make them eat breakfast by going to McDonald's.